All right. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Middle East Forum's weekly podcast series. My name is Anaf Kalam, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Now, for decades, Iran's theocratic regime has wielded unyielding control, fueling regional instability throughout its nuclear ambitions, proxy militias, and ideological fervor, casting a shadow over the Middle East. Yet, amid escalating internal protests, economic collapse, and external pressures from Israel's precision strikes on key military targets in 2025, whispers of regime change are growing louder. How might a post-regime Iran redefine its role in the region? What opportunities and risks would this present for Israel's security, Arab state stability, and the broader quest for Middle East equilibrium and security? Now, joining us to discuss all of this and more is Mr. Beni Sabti, who is an Iran expert at the Institute for National Security Studies. He was born in Iran in the early 70s and raised primarily under the Islamic Revolutionary regime before escaping to Israel later in his life, where he served in the IDF primarily as a researcher in projects relating to Iranian culture and influence on cognition, decision-making, and media, including leading the establishment of the IDF Spokesperson's platforms in Persian. Now, typically, I would invite you, the audience members, to ask your questions using the Q&A box. But as this is a pre-recorded episode, we will not be having a Q&A session, so the Q&A box will not be functional during this live stream. Now, with that, I would like to first thank you, Mr. Sabti, for taking the time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
Yes, of course. Now, you were born in Iran and raised under the Islamic Revolution before you escaped to Israel. You've witnessed the regime's evolution firsthand. And with recent escalations like, Israel's Operation Rising Lion strikes over the summer of 2025, targeting over 100 military and nuclear sites, and Iran's missile and drone responses, how have the regime's nuclear ambitions and proxy support for groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis fueled the current flashpoints in the Iran-Israel tensions as of what is today, July of 2025?
Well, I have to say something that, they wanted to destroy Israel, and not only Israel, but all Jewish communities from the day one of the revolution. This is one thing that we have to remember. But they didn't have the ability. Those things that you mentioned, they are abilities. But in the ambitions, they wanted to do that in the day one on February 79, and even before that. All the protests and the demonstrations of the revolution in 78 and 79 were fueled by anti-Semitism, really. All the time we heard that Israel, they burned some synagogues, of course, official offices of Israeli representatives in Iran, if it was Al offices or the Israeli embassy, they captured it much before the American embassy. So we have to remember that as long as this regime for 47 years wants to destroy other nations, it doesn't matter if they are the Jews or the Western other countries or nations, this is the main problem. Nuclear program or terror program are just a tool. And this is what I'm very sorry about, that we went to this war very late. We didn't prevent anything. We just kind of woke up very late, just after October 7th. So we have to go on with that until this regime is neutralized, not only from its abilities, but it's from that way of thinking that it's not a way a human a kind of a human way to wish to destroy other nations. You cannot be part of this world when you want to destroy other nations. So either they change or we change or I don't know what, but we have to stop it wherever it is here.
Something you kind of touched on there. I'm sorry, I know there was a lot that I asked you there, but something that you kind of touched on is the prospects for total regime change in Iran. And one thing that I have been thinking about recently is that it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, it seems like there has been a window after the 12-day war between Iran and Israel and the nuclear strikes from the United States on Fordo and Natanz and Isfahan. It seems like with the Iranian regime, with the Islamic Republic being so weak now, you know, they lost Assad, they lost their proxies, they're in their dying breaths. It seems like there was a window for the Iranian people to really do what they had to do and get rid of the Islamic Republic. Now, I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, so excuse me, audience members, if this sounds redundant. But it seems like, just as the strategy in Gaza with Hamas was for many years mowing the grass, right, where they never really fully took out the threat from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, they mowed the grass just enough to where eventually it would become a problem, but for now it's not. Do you fear that by not allowing a full regime change in Iran, whatever that means, whether it's American, Israeli, Arab state involvement, by not doing that, do you feel like we are, as they say, putting out 80% of the fire with regards to the Islamic Republic?
Exactly. And I want to say this window didn't open in this last war. It was open maybe for 34, 35 or maybe 40 years. Just after Khomeini died, we had a new chance for Iran. And you know, even without thinking, and I'm saying a very bad thing, a very negative thing, even just for thinking of ourselves, for how it can make it better for West, we had to help the Iranian people to change their their regime and their future, because this window opened in the 90s. We had the protests of the students in 99, and we had after that the 2009. And remember what they shouted in the streets of Tehran: no to Gaza, no to Lebanon. I want help to help only Iran. This is a very important slogan because it means I don't want to interfere others. I don't want the nuclear program. I don't want the terror program, these militias or terror organizations. This is the better name. We shouldn't say proxies or militias. We have to say terror organizations. And and many other protests that they came after that, especially the Mahsa protest, the women protest recently in September 2022, if I'm not mistaken. But the problem is the West didn't bring that flag to the right place. They didn't support the Iranian people as they could. And I'm very sorry to say the American administration, especially in that times of the protests in 2009 and 2022 and other cases, they didn't say one word to support the Iranian people. And we know that they want a regime change. You know, some statistics, 80% of the Iranians didn't go to vote in the last presidential elections for Pezeshkian after Raisi was dead. And many other statistics. 55% of the Iranians are between 15 years old to 40 years old. They didn't see the revolution. They are not old as I am. They didn't see the Iran-Iraq war. They don't care about all these false values of the regime, and they're praising the leader, and he is just like North Korea. He is kind of God for this regime. only 20%, 15% to 20% of the Iranians support the regime. Of course, they have the guns, they have the money, they have the oil. I know. And even Rouhani, the ex-president, said this sentence. It cannot be like that, that a group, a special group, they have all the power and the people have nothing. And the West, instead of supporting this and supporting the people, we didn't speak in that days. So this is the reason that we have this war now and we have this October 7th. It begins, as I said before, as we said before, with the ideology, with expanding the revolution. And when they brought the revolution to everywhere in Middle East and beyond that, of course we will have wars. Of course we will have uh, big confrontations. And we have to stop them. I'm happy that it happened now, and we have to join hands, the West with Israel and all the modern Arab countries in Middle East. And yes, at least weakening this regime until the people take uh, care of it and take control of their country. We don't want anything in Iran. We don't want to be involved in that. They have to choose their future. So, but we have to help them. Every day they write slogans on the walls, or they shout, or they put it in the social media. We are very thankful that Israel is helping us, or maybe America is helping us. Don't leave the sanctions. They want to suffer, but just to have this surgery and being cured after that, taking this regime out and make it better for all of us.
Entirely correct. But what might that look like on the ground for the young? As you mentioned, there's a very large population of very young people in Iran, and some amount of them, you might assume, work for the regime. They might become IRGC or whatever. But by and large, do you think there is a fighting chance for the young people, with or without the support from the United States or the West or from Israel? Um, what is their fighting chance against even a very weak Iranian regime to be able to overthrow it?
Actually, I'm very sorry to say, but they don't have any organizations and leadership inside Iran. Yes, there are some opposition figures outside Iran, some of them in US, some of them in Europe. I hope that they have a coalition together. They almost had it after massive protests, but it didn't work. I wish for them to be united, because it also can give hope to the Iranian people inside. Some of them are more supported, some of them are less supported, but it doesn't matter. The moment that Iranian people see unity outside of Iran, they can have hope. But the main thing is about US administration, and in these days also Israel. If we support them in being organized, maybe supplying internet tools and social media, and not letting this regime cut the internet every time that there is a kind of tension in the society. You know, it's very funny, very ridiculous. The Iranian regime comes out and says the people now are united with the regime because of these attacks of Israel, because of the war. How? They didn't bring back the internet yet. How? You are afraid. You are afraid of the people. This is what we don't understand. This is what I'm saying to the Israeli system. And whenever I have the chance to already also to the American system, because US, we cannot deny it, has the most power in everything in the whole world. When US supports something, it happens. When US neglects something, it falls. So US has to come in, has to talk to Iranian people. Together with Israel, we can exchange experiences and contribute to each other, and of course contribute to the Iranian people. You know, even practical things for the American people. I was in US in, I think, in January or February, and I was shocked. Every fuel gallon costs $5, around $5. if the Iranian regime and the tension in Middle East are gone, the gallon of fuel can be $2.50, like it was not so many years before, not so many years before, maybe $3. I'm not a politician and I'm not I don't know so much about economy, but I know that tensions and psychological shocks, they uh, don't do good to the stock market and to economy. If we help the Iranian people, we actually help each other and ourselves and our pockets. So I hope we do that.
No, you make a very good point there because a lot of people, in fact, I think most people, are very focused on the geopolitical and the social and the ethnic and the religion and the sectarian aspects of these. But just like I mean, you're correct. Here in the United States, for people who don't really care about those things, they care about gas prices. And when gas is, as you said, like $5 for a gallon, they start to care about these issues, and I think they well should. Um, Now, to kind of jump a little away from what you were just saying, not to jump around too much. I know it's a very big topic. I have an audience question here that was emailed to me by a longtime viewer, and he asks, there was a recent report in which it was outlined that Saddam Hussein had made a deal with the Shah to take out Ayatollah Khomeini, and the Shah refused to do so. And this is maybe a philosophical thought experimenty question here. Maybe you might not be able to answer it, but do you think um, do you think the Shah should have let Saddam Hussein take out the Ayatollah Khomeini?
Uh, Actually, there are many evidences that they prove that it really was there. Saddam asked the king, the Shah, to take out Khomeini. You can ask the same thing about Hitler, and why no one took Hitler out, and we didn't have World War II and the Holocaust. So, of course, Shah was kind of and it's not that I'm exaggerating or admiring him. He was kind of merciful, and he really had honor toward Islam and ayatollahs and prophets. So he couldn't do that. He couldn't order such a thing. And this is the only thing that Iran and Iraq in 70s cooperated together to stand against the extremism of the religious establishment. Because also in Iraq, there is a very big Shiite community. Of course, in day by day, they are regular people and calm people, even better than other communities. But Saddam was worried about this extremism that Khomeini brought with him from Iran when he was exiled in the 60s to Iraq. He was afraid of him. So this is the reason that he asked Shah that maybe they can both have a common goal about that. But the Shah didn't agree, and we know the rest. I wish he was agreed, and maybe we haven't this talk now, but it was better world. It was even a better world for us.
There is something else that you mentioned. Um, there's something else you mentioned earlier in your remarks about the demographics of the Iranian population and how it's so interesting and how it's so notable that so many of the Iranian population is very young people. Um, the late author Christopher Hitchens had a little point where he described this young generation of Iranians as what he called the baby boomerang. After the Iran-Iraq war, there was incentives inside of Iran for women to have as many children as they could to replace the massive casualties they faced during the Iran-Iraq war. And so women were paid to have a lot of children, and those children would only grow up to hate the new Islamic republic that their parents' generation brought in, and thus he called it the baby boomerang. Do you have any hope, or of course you must have hope? Do you have any solid Are you optimistic about the prospects of this young new generation being successful in showing us the end of the Islamic Republic?
Of course, of course. And we see it much in the social media. First of all, in maybe in these 15 last years or 20 years, there is a huge change between the generations, the old generation and the new generation. And something also about the statistics, people bring only 1.2 children now. It's not like the beginning of the revolution, 6 point or 5 point something. It was a huge explosion of the population in that days because of that war and what you said. But today, they want a better life. They want to have only one child and to give him everything, education especially. But the regime makes limitation. You know, they give most of the places in the universities to the sons and daughters of the martyrs, the shaheeds, even without SATs, even without having exams. You can be a doctor even only when you are a son of a shaheed. Would you go to a doctor that because he became a doctor because he is only a son of a shaheed? He, do you dare to do that? They don't have any exams. There is a very huge discrimination between those who support the regime and those who don't support, or maybe they are indifferent. They are just Iranians. They don't. They want to live there. So either they immigrate from Iran to West, to Europe, to America, or they stay and they struggle and they see who takes their bread, their jobs, their money, who lives in their palaces. Of course, they want change, but they have to have some organizations, as we said before. You know, this is the difference between the period before the revolution and now. In the 70s and also 60s, the clerics built many organizations to even to train, to collect money for the future revolution. Also, the extreme left, who was supported by Soviet Union, they joined hands and they made the revolution. Today, we don't have these powerful camps. Uh, if you are not with the regime, you don't have these powerful camps. So the Iranians as individuals, they suffer a lot. If they can immigrate, they immigrate from Iran. They love Iran outside of Iran more than when they are inside. But if you stay and struggle, you make hidden parties, you try to live there, you don't marry, you live with a girl, and this is a very unusual thing in Islamic regime. You live with a girl and you don't marry or bring children, and it's just a Western kind of life, but not talking about that. Do everything you want, but just don't talk about it. So of course, in the long time, in the long range, it can bring a change. But we cannot stand here and wait for all the Ayatollahs to die. And I'm sorry to say, most of them don't die so easily. One of the leader advisors is 102 years old. So we don't want to see that. There are a lot of jokes about him. Jannati, his name is Jannati. There are a lot of jokes that he saw the prophet Noah and he helped Noah to bring the animals inside the ark and many other jokes. Adam and Eve in the garden. Yeah, so this old and half dead regime is not relevant to those young men. But they don't have weapons, not like the revolution. They don't have organizations. They don't have leadership inside Iran.
Right. Well, I dearly hope that the right people do help them, because it would be wonderful. I hope to see the day that within my lifetime I can take a vacation in Tehran again, and it'll be a wonderful place. Now we are at the end of our podcast for this week, unfortunately. I want to thank you again for taking the time to share your insights with us.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And maybe next time we will meet when there is a huge change in Iran. Yes, you can follow me in the X or Twitter, Twitter, Beni Sabti. You can find me also Instagram, but mostly in Twitter. And also INSS site. We have articles. We have my podcast there in Hebrew. Most of it is in Hebrew or in Persian. We want to talk to the Iranians. But sometimes it's also translated to English. So please follow us on that site or in my private Twitter. I'll be very glad to bring you a little bit more about Iran.
Yes, of course. Now, for those watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, I will be sure to put the links to those resources in the description below. So please click them. Follow Mr. Sapti's work. He is doing thankless work, and it is very much appreciated in this day and age. Now, please be on the lookout on Wednesday of this week for our Israel Insider podcast with Ashley Perry. And then on Friday, we will be having a podcast with my friend Josh Hammer about his most recent book, Israel and Civilization. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be fantastic. So stay tuned for that. As always, I thank you all again for your viewership and your participation, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.